concerned and should be addressed. Open means an adequate international cooperation should be open, should be transparent. So that means anything China's project overseas should be transparent, procedure should be open bidding and open competition. And green means we should not do the pollution, should protect the environment. That should be, because many of the developing countries are still backward. If we develop the industry there might be repeated the old ways, traditional ways of polluting, but we will avoid it from the very beginning. And clean means there could be no corruption, so that would be totally transparent. And we will also do something further, including the assessment of sustainable sovereign debt. So that would also responding to concerns from the West.
Concerns from the West.
Yes.
Let's stay on that for a minute, and Ho Wei-wen's just touching on it right there. As we await President Xi Jinping's address to the media here, as far as the results from this Second Belt and Road Forum, Jamie, do you think that he's going to address directly or indirectly this somewhat accusation from some of the Western countries that parts of BRI kind of push certain countries into this idea of debt diplomacy?
Right.
That's sort of been an accusation from the West that China has certainly pushed back on.
Yes.
But there are some concerns with BRI and some of these very underdeveloped countries. Right. Is that something Xi Jinping is going to touch on, or how do you think he's going to address this?
He may not touch on it in specific terms, but I think precisely what Mr. He just mentioned, he should address the concern that this is a debt trap, which is a very oft-repeated criticism of BRI in many countries. And I think it's a matter of assuring the countries who are interested in BRI that this will not necessarily lead to a debt trap. And I think what China is doing now, by, for example, including international financial institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank and the AIIB, I think it will improve such an assurance that countries are not really susceptible to this so-called debt diplomacy. Of course, in the end, it depends on the countries themselves. It depends on the recipients of the BRI funding. They should be vetted by them as well as by China, and that China should make it to have the mechanisms, for example, that these are really transparent, clean, and green transactions.
Transparency. That seems to be a very big and important, an important thing to say. Okay, so again, just to let folks know who are just tuning in, we are awaiting President Xi Jinping's address to the media. He's going to be briefing reporters on the results of this year's Belt and Road Forum there at Beijing's Yangtze Lake. Beautiful venue right there. Let's go ahead and go inside as people are getting situated and seated as we wait to hear from President Xi Jinping.
Friends from the media, good afternoon. His Excellency Xi Jinping, President of the People's Republic of China, is here to meet the press. President Xi, you have the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, good afternoon. Welcome to the press conference of the Second Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. Since it was put forth over 5 years ago, the Belt and Road Initiative has caught much media attention. All of you have been following and covering the second BRF since its opening, recording memorable moments, spreading key messages, and reporting on the fruitful outcomes of Belt and Road cooperation. On behalf of the Chinese government and delegates from all participating countries, I wish to express our appreciation to all of you for your support and hard work. This year's BRF, the second China has hosted, is larger and more substantive than the first one, attracting more countries and producing more results. This year, delegates and business representatives from over 150 countries have participated in the opening ceremony, the high-level meeting, 12 thematic forums, and CEO conference. Delegates and representatives from over 100 countries have participated in these events. The Leaders' Roundtable held today was attended by leaders from 38 countries as well as the United Nations and the International Monetary Fund. The theme of this year's forum is Belt and Road Cooperation, Shaping a Brighter Shared Future. Earlier today, leaders of participating countries and international organizations held in-depth discussions on boosting connectivity to explore new sources of growth, strengthening policy synergy and building closer partnerships, and promoting green and sustainable development to implement UN 2030 agenda. We reached extensive consensus on promoting high-quality Belt and Road cooperation with refined principles, clear priorities, and stronger mechanisms. The leaders' common views are reflected in the joint communique adopted by consensus at the Leaders' Roundtable and will guide our efforts as we advance Belt and Road cooperation in years to come. We spoke positively of the progress and value of Belt and Road cooperation. We shared the view that Belt and Road cooperation has created opportunities for common prosperity. Since the BRI was proposed over 5 years ago, and especially after the first BRF, countries concerned have made concerted efforts to expand policy communication, upgrade infrastructure connectivity, advance economic, trade, and investment cooperation, enhance financial cooperation, and facilitate people-to-people exchange. The early harvests of Belt and Road cooperation achieved so far have opened up greater space for national and global economic growth, provided a platform for enhancing international cooperation, and made a fresh contribution to building a community with a shared future for mankind. We enriched the concept of Belt and Road cooperation and jointly reaffirmed our commitment to its high-quality development. Guided by the principle of extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits, the parties have conducted consultation as equals, jointly shouldered responsibilities, and enjoyed the benefits together. All interested countries are welcome to join us. We are committed to supporting open, clean, and green development and rejecting protectionism, and are working hard to develop a clean and green Silk Road for the new era. We have agreed to act on the principles of high standard, people-centered, and sustainable development, align our cooperation with universally accepted international rules and standards, follow the philosophy of people-centered development, and pursue coordinated progress in economic, social, and environmental dimensions. These common views have pointed way for Belt and Road cooperation toward our common goal, that is, to realize more effective connectivity between countries, promote stronger economic growth, and closer international cooperation, and deliver better lives to our peoples. We set clear priorities for Belt and Road cooperation and decided to strengthen all-round and multi-tiered cooperation. We will continue to promote land, sea, air, and cyber connectivity and develop high-quality, sustainable, resilient, affordable, inclusive, and accessible infrastructure. We will advance the development of economic corridors and economic and trade cooperation zones, enhance the alignment between markets, regulations, and standards, and encourage the development of digital infrastructure. In all Belt and Road cooperation projects, the government will provide guidance, enterprises will act as the main players, and market principles will apply. This will make the projects more sustainable and create a fair and non-discriminatory environment for foreign investors. We will continue to diversify financing channels, reduce financing costs, and welcome the participation of multilateral and foreign financial institutions in investment and financing cooperation. We have also agreed to conduct extensive and multifaceted people-to-people and cultural exchanges and launch more cooperation projects for the benefit of our peoples. We all want to make Belt and Road cooperation development-oriented and all support global development, particularly the implementation of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and will strive for clean, low-carbon, and sustainable development. It is also necessary to help developing countries break bottlenecks to development and better partake in and benefit from global value, industrial, and supply chains. We all supported the idea of building a global partnership on connectivity and agreed to strengthen mechanisms for Belt and Road cooperation. To this end, we will find greater complementarity between the economic development initiatives and plans of interested countries and international organizations, step up bilateral cooperation and cooperation in third markets, and continue to develop the China-Europe Railway Express, the new international land-sea trade corridor, and other international transportation and trade links in order to help more countries improve connectivity. We reviewed the report of the BRF Advisory Council and look forward to more intellectual support from the Advisory Council for Belt and Road Cooperation and the BRF. We will uphold multilateralism and work to foster a framework led by the BRF and underpinned by multilateral and bilateral cooperation in various areas. The goal is to see that our cooperation is guided by an overall vision, followed up by actions, and supported by concrete institutions. The leaders share the view that the BRF is an important platform for multilateral cooperation and support holding the forum on a regular basis. We all supported more results-oriented cooperation and more concrete outcomes. In the run-up to and during the course of this forum, the parties reached 283 deliverables, including intergovernmental cooperation agreements, practical cooperation projects, the initiation of multilateral dialogue and cooperation platforms in specific areas, and the release of a Belt and Road Cooperation Progress Report, as well as the report of the BRF Advisory Council. As the host of the forum, China will release
成果清单。
a deliverables list.
论坛期间，
A great
举行的
many
企业家大会
business representatives
吸引了
participated
众多
in the
工商界人
CEO
士
conference.
签署了总额
They signed project
640
cooperation
多亿
agreements worth
美元
over
的项目合
64
作协议。
billion US dollars.
这些成果充分
All of
说明
this shows that
共建一带
Belt
一
and
路
Road cooperation
硬潮流
is in sync
革
with
命新
the times, widely
惠民
supported,
生
people-centered,
利天下。
and beneficial to all.
昨天我宣布了中国
Yesterday,
将采
I
取的
announced
一系列
a series
重大
of
改革开放
major
的措施
reform and opening up steps that China will take.
大家普遍认为
They are seen
这
by
对中
all
国
sides as
世
good
界
news for
都
both
是好
China
消息。
and the world at large,
将为共建“一带一路” 和
and
世界
important
经济发展
opportunities for Belt and Road
重要机遇。
cooperation and development for the world economy.
这一届论坛对外传递了一个明
This
确
year's
信
forum
号：
sends a clear message.
共建“一带一路”的朋友
More and
圈
more friends
越来越大，
and partners will
好
join
伙
in
伴
Belt and Road
越来越多，
cooperation,
合作质量
and
越来越
the
高，
cooperation will enjoy
发展
higher
前景
quality
越来越
and
好。
brighter prospects.
我多次说过，
I have noted on many
共建
occasions
“一带一路”倡议
that while the
源于
BRI
中国，
was launched by China,
机会
its
和
opportunities
成果
and outcomes
属于世界。
are shared by the world.
共建“一带一路”
Belt
是
and
一项
Road
长
cooperation
期工程，
is a long-term endeavor
是合作伙伴
and a
共同
common
的
cause
事业。
of all its cooperation
中
partners.
国愿同各方一道，
China will work with all parties
落实好本
to
届
implement the
高
consensus
峰论坛各
reached
项
at this
共
year's
识，
forum.
以绘制
Advance
公比化的精神，
results-oriented implementation
共同推动
of
共建
projects in the
一带一路
spirit of an
走深
architect,
走实
refining the blueprint,
行稳
ensure
致远
substantive, steady, sustained,
高
and
质量发展
high-quality development,
开创更加
and
美好
usher
的
in a brighter future of Belt and Road
希
cooperation.
望媒体
I hope
记者
our
朋友
friends
们
from the media
继续的
will continue
积极的
to actively
支持
support
共建
Belt
“一
and
带一
Road
路”合作。
cooperation.
谢谢大家。
Thank you.
谢谢大家。
That's the end of the press conference. Thank you.
All right, and if you're just joining us, this is special coverage of President Xi Jinping's speech at the Belt and Road Forum, which is just concluding today, this 3-day event. And he had some really good things to say during this speech. He said that this year's forum, larger and more substantive. He says that the Belt and Road is a high-quality development and that the Chinese government is devoted to ensuring that that is the case. He says that he wants the government to ensure a clean and green Silk Road. And he really pushed on closer connectivity with all of the countries involved in the BRI, including land, sea, air, and cyber connectivity, all in the end to deliver better lives to all peoples involved. So for more on this, I am joined now by my colleague Jonathan Betts at Yangtze Lake, not too far away from where President Xi Jinping was just delivering these pretty positive words to come out of this forum. Jonathan.
Yeah, Eric, a lot of interesting notes to take note of here by President Xi Jinping on the final day of this massive Belt and Road Forum as he outlines his vision of the future for his pet project launched in 2013. It's interesting to note that he said that more and more friends and partners will join, that this is a project that was launched by China, but is something that is shared by the world. So let's bring in our guest here to talk about it. On a set with us is Han Hua, president of the Beijing Belt and Road Cooperative Community, and our reporter Yang Chengxi, who's been covering this here at Yangtze Lake for us. So Chengxi, let me start with you. Your takeaway from his speech. I thought it was interesting that he keeps on driving home this point, that he wants the Belt and Road Initiative to be open, clean, and green, and as he just said a couple of moments ago, in sync with the times. What does that tell you?
Yes, we can see that the Belt and Road Initiative, after 6 years of establishment, has been accelerating. For example, we see that there are 283 deliverables being announced this year. When compared to 2 years ago, it was something more than 270. So there are a lot more deliverables. So that means that leaders are finding more common ground on a lot of Belt and Road issues and how it would move forward. And then President Xi said they will also announce a Belt and Road report, which details the scientific development methods and advocations going forward. And I think the press conference showcased a great case of multilateralism, because as more heads of state are joining, that means that the Belt and Road Initiative is more representative of the interests of a lot more countries along this region. And especially last month, we see Italy being this first G7 country to sign an MOU on the Belt and Road Initiative with the Chinese government. So that means that we've reached an extensive consensus. And one of the interesting points that I heard from President Xi is that not only in his speech this morning, but just now he mentioned that the Belt and Road Initiative should work together and find synergies with the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, and as well as other development agendas of different countries. So we are finding common grounds between the Belt and Road Initiative and different countries' own interest and agenda. It's not challenging the existing global economic order, but complementing it in a way. It's not a risk.
Which is an important point here, Ms. Han, because 2 years ago, when the last forum was held here for the Belt and Road Initiative, the focus seemed to be about talking about the scale, the size of this initiative. Now it seems to be responding to concerns, addressing this, becoming more global, not just a Chinese project, but truly a project shared by the international community. Do you agree with that?
Of course. This is what President Xi Jinping just said now in his press conference when he mentioned that the second BRF is being larger but more substantive. This shows the higher quality, not only within the projects that BRI is promoting, but also within the BRF, the conference itself. So the BRF, especially its highest level, the Roundtable Summit by the world leaders itself, is setting a very good model to enhance the people-to-people exchange, the key messages that the conference wants to send to the world, which is connectivity, which is more open, and which is more inclusive. Thinking about there are about over 60% of the world's countries are now participating into BRI to some extent, whether to sign a bilateral agreement with China or to join China in the third markets. So these are showing that the BRF, the second one, after 6 years and 2 years from now, from the first one, is going to be more high quality and more substantive.
You know, a big difference this year, Cheng-Shi, is the CEO's conference here. This focus on trying to include more corporations, more private businesses, so it's not just government-sponsored and government-backed loans here and projects. What do you make of that?
Well, I attended the CEO conference on Thursday, and one of the key points that reiterates by the business community is that the Belt and Road Forum should be more representative. It's not one-way trade from China to other countries, or one-way investment from China to the Belt and Road members. After 6 years of development, the relationship goes both ways. For example, the executive director of the International Trade Center, Arantxa Gonzalez, said that the Belt and Road Initiative should benefit businesses, no matter big and small, across the Belt and Road region. And in a sub-forum on digital economy yesterday, we're seeing that leaders discussing exactly that, because with the power of e-commerce, more and more goods from Belt and Road member countries are being sold in China instead of just one-way China exporting all these goods and products. According to the biggest e-commerce platform in China, Alibaba, the imports of goods from Belt and Road countries in China last year grew 120% year on year, and that is a very concrete result of the cooperation framework established under the Belt and Road
But yet
Initiative.
there is skepticism out there. So what were some of the concerns you were hearing from some of these business leaders at this conference?
I guess one of the biggest concern is are Chinese investments across all these countries setting up so-called debt traps in these economies? Because when you're investing in a lot of developing countries, emerging countries, for example, it raised the problem of, can these projects or can these investments be repaid? Are these countries strong in their solvency power? So, in response to as a direct response to this concern, the Chinese Ministry of Finance issued an analytic framework during the forum that provides an analytic tool for not only Chinese funds, but all the financial institutions along the Belt and Road to calculate and make more scientific calculations on the solvencies of these projects. So, as President Xi said just now, the projects along the region is being more market-based, being more market-oriented. So I think this is a very positive development.
Yeah, we hear this concern repeatedly that these projects possibly are too large, they're too expensive for these countries, and that they fall into this debt trap. How seriously do you think China is taking this criticism, Ms. Han?
I think it's very seriously, by in this forum, there is a very interesting feature added, that we have more sub-forum, and one of them is the think tank Ideas Exchange Forum, which brought together almost over 100 think tanks worldwide to join together and to share ideas, including to share the concerns and to share the ideas and also how to tackle these kind of concerns, how to make a better communication, not from China's perspective, but also from the perspective from the other countries that are joining BRI. So I think this is a very good advancement from the first conference, that we are advancing this kind of ideas exchange, also people-to-people connectivity to
so
address
it does feel like
not
China
only
is receptive, though, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's what you're getting at. It seems like China is listening and is responding and saying, okay, there may be something there. We're willing to listen and we're willing to change course.
Right, exactly. And also China is doing so by not only introducing this kind of think tank and ideas exchange. I think China is addressing this issue through other connectivities, like we share is the essence of this BRF and also the BRI itself. So China is bringing together all the people. This is not an issue faced to China only, but it's maybe a common and universal issue that face all the participating countries. So we need to figure out the exact effective measures to tackle this problem together.
Cheng Xi, so much has changed since this project was first launched only 6 years ago. Billions and billions of dollars have been spent. It has changed the landscape, truly, in many countries all over the world, including, I suppose, in China. Where do you see the future going with this? What does the future look like for the BRI?
Well, a lot of experts, and as well as officials during this forum, talked about how this initiative should become more mature in the future. It's not just a big advocacy anymore. We should go into the details. So experts and officials are talking about in the forum that we should sit down and talk about very detailed measures such as taxation, how to enhance transparency, how to enhance accountability, how to involve more third-party organizations, for example, the World Bank and the IMF, in helping the organization make more scientific investment decisions, cooperation decisions. So these require leaders to not only from politics but businesses sit together and discuss how to move forward with this.
Ms. Han, I'll give the final word to
and
you.
I
What
think
is the big headline?
Yeah, the Chinese president already makes some direct feedback to these kind of concerns by raising the 5 major steps of reforming and opening up. This is not in alliance with China's individual and the development agenda, but it is also in alliance with the BRI development agenda.
So what do you think is the big headline then? From this forum?
From this forum, I think, the transparent, green, and clean and more connectivity is definitely the key message I got from BRF.
It definitely seems like a lot is changing. As you say, Cheng Xi, it's becoming a little bit more nimble, more sophisticated, more mature, but without question, still growing. So we want to thank you both for your time. Yang Cheng Xi, our reporter covering this here at Yanqi Lake, and Ms. Han Hua, the president of the Beijing Belt and Road Cooperative Community. Thanks for your time today. So that does it here from our studios here in Yanqi Lake. The forum is wrapping up, as we mentioned, after 3 days of discussions with leaders from all over the world. world. 37 heads of state and government have been attending this conference just north of Beijing. We'll have much more coverage in the coming hours, including on Asia Today, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But for now, back to you, Erica.